In 1982, America was building shopping malls faster than almost anything else in the country. Through the 1990s, roughly 140 brand new malls opened their doors every single year. That's a new mall, somewhere in America, almost every 2.5 days. They were the beating heart of American life. The place you went on a first date, where you saw your first movie without your parents, where you bought your back-to-school clothes, got your ears pierced, hung out with friends with nowhere else to be. And today, hundreds of them sit exactly like this. Silent, gutted, abandoned. So what happened? How does something this big, this profitable, this woven into the fabric of a country, just die? The easy answer is Amazon. But the easy answer is wrong. Because the truth is, the American mall was already dying long before anyone clicked buy now. Let me show you. To understand how the mall died, you have to understand why it was built. And the answer starts with a man who actually hated everything the mall would become. His name was Victor Gruen. An Austrian architect who fled to America, Gruen had a vision in the 1950s. He looked at the sprawl of American suburbs, these endless seas of houses with no center, no town square, no place for people to simply be, and he wanted to fix it. He imagined a fully enclosed, climate-controlled space where people could shop, yes, but also gather. A modern town square, a community. In 1956, that vision opened its doors. Southdale Center, just outside Minneapolis. The first fully enclosed, climate-controlled shopping mall in America. Outside, it was freezing Minnesota. Inside? 72 degrees, year-round, with a garden courtyard, fountains, and shops on 2 levels. It was a sensation. And here's where the money comes in. Because the mall wasn't just an architectural idea. It was a brilliant financial machine. Here's how it worked. A mall was anchored by big department stores, Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, Montgomery Ward. 2, 3, sometimes 4 of them, planted at the ends of the building. These anchors were the bait. They were often given sweetheart deals, cheap rent, sometimes practically free rent, because they weren't really the customers. They were the magnets. The anchors pulled in massive foot traffic, and all those shoppers had to walk past the real moneymakers to get from one anchor to another. The small inline stores, the shoe store, the bookstore, the Orange Julius, the place that sold only socks and posters. Those tenants paid premium rent per square foot. That was where the mall made its profit. Anchors bring the crowd. The crowd walks the corridor. The corridor stores pay the rent. It was elegant. It was a money printer. And it worked spectacularly. By 1960, there were already more than 4,500 shopping centers in America, accounting for around 14% of all retail sales. The malling of America was on. The 1970s and 80s were the golden age. The mall stopped being just a place to shop and became American culture itself. Movies were set there. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Valley Girl, later Clueless, and Mallrats. In 1986, Consumer Reports named the shopping mall one of the 50 wonders that had revolutionized the life of the American consumer. By 1990, there were over 1,500 major enclosed malls in the United States, and they accounted for more than 30% of all retail sales. Think about that. Nearly a third of everything Americans bought ran through the mall. Victor Gruen, by the way, hated what his idea had become. He felt developers had stripped away the community's soul and kept only the cash register. He literally disowned it. But nobody was listening, because everybody was making money. And when everybody's making money, nobody stops to ask the dangerous question: what if we're building too many? Here's the thing about a money printer. Everyone wants one. So developers kept building, and building, and building. New malls went up just a few miles from existing ones. They'd break ground in anticipation of housing developments that hadn't even been built yet. Bigger malls, fancier malls, malls to compete with the mall one town over. And slowly, a problem emerged that nobody wanted to see. America was running out of people to fill them. By the peak, the United States had built more retail square footage per person than any other country on Earth, by a wide margin. We had something like 6 times the retail space per capita of countries in Europe. It was a bubble, a concrete and asphalt bubble. And like every bubble, it depended on one thing to keep going: growth that never stops. The new malls didn't create new shoppers. They just split the same shoppers across more buildings. Stores started cannibalizing each other. When a shiny new mall opened across town, the older ones started to feel dated. And once a mall starts to feel dated, a quiet, vicious cycle begins. Watch how this works, because this is the mechanism that actually kills malls. It starts with the anchor. Remember, the anchor is the magnet that brings the foot traffic. But department stores were themselves getting squeezed by discount giants like Walmart and Target and Kohl's, stores that didn't anchor malls. So a struggling department store closes one of its locations. Now the anchor's gone. And here's the trap that was baked into those sweetheart deals decades earlier. The leases for the small inline stores often contained something called a co-tenancy clause. It said, in effect, "We agreed to pay this rent because you promised us anchor stores and foot traffic. If an anchor goes dark, our rent drops, or we're allowed to walk away entirely." So one anchor closes. Foot traffic craters. The co-tenancy clauses trigger. The small stores either slash their rent or leave. The mall's income collapses. With less income, the mall can't maintain itself. The lighting gets dimmer, the upkeep slips, a wing goes quiet. That makes it even less attractive, so more stores leave, which means less income, which means less maintenance. That's the death spiral. And notice, I haven't said the word internet once. This was already happening. Then came 2008. The Great Recession hit American consumers like a sledgehammer. People stopped spending. And critically, the recession permanently changed how people spent. Shoppers came out the other side more cost-conscious, more drawn to discount and big box and value retailers, and less willing to pay department store prices. Department store sales would eventually fall off a cliff, down more than 40% from their pre-recession levels. The weakest malls, the ones already wobbling, already in the spiral, started tipping over for good. And here's a brutal detail about why malls specifically couldn't adapt. A strip mall, an open-air center, can tear down one underperforming section and rebuild. But an enclosed mall is a single, static, sealed building. A giant island in a sea of parking. You can't easily renovate one dead wing. When it starts to go, the whole organism goes with it. The foundation was already cracked. The bubble was already leaking. And then, only then, came the thing everybody blames. In 1999, e-commerce was a rounding error. Barely a fraction of a percent of retail sales. A novelty. Buy a book online, wait a week, feel like you live in the future. But it grew. Quietly at first, then relentlessly. And it didn't need to replace the mall to kill it. Remember the death spiral? Remember how fragile the whole thing already was? E-commerce didn't have to land a knockout punch. It just had to tap an opponent that was already swaying on its feet. As one writer put it perfectly, when online shopping arrived, it stabbed a victim that was already bleeding out. Here's how fast it moved. E-commerce went from around 10% of US retail in 2019 to over 20% by the mid-2020s. Depending on how you measure it, more than a fifth of everything Americans buy now happens online. And it's still climbing. Some analysts project it'll reach 27% by 2030. But the real damage wasn't the percentage. It was what moved online first, and who it took down. The first things people bought online in huge numbers were exactly the things malls depended on. Books, there goes the bookstore. Music, there goes the record shop. Then clothes. Apparel became the single most purchased category online. And apparel was the lifeblood of the mall. And it went straight for the anchors. The department store, already weakened by recession, already squeezed by Walmart on one side, now got hit by Amazon on the other, caught in the middle with nowhere to stand. Sears, the company that had once been the Amazon of its own era, the giant that practically invented selling everything to everyone, collapsed into bankruptcy. JCPenney, bankruptcy. One by one, the magnets that held the whole structure together went dark. And every time an anchor fell, it pulled a death spiral trigger in mall after mall after mall, all across the country, all at once. The co-tenancy clauses fired. The inline stores fled. The income vanished. The numbers tell the story of the carnage. From the 1980s, when there were roughly 2,500 enclosed malls in America, the country is now down to somewhere around 700, and analysts expect that number to keep falling. Recently, in a single year, America lost a net 5,000 retail stores, and UBS, a major investment bank, has projected that as many as 80,000 stores could close in just a 5-year window. But, and this is the part most people miss, not all malls are dying. And which ones survive tells you everything about what's really going on. Analysts split malls into classes. Class A malls, the luxury high-end ones in wealthy areas, full of experiences you can't get online, those are not just surviving, they're thriving. The ones dying are the Class B and Class C malls. The middle of the road, the mid-tier, the ones in struggling towns selling the exact commodity goods you can now get cheaper and faster with your thumb. Sit with that, because it reframes the entire story. The internet didn't kill shopping. People are still spending more than ever. What the internet killed was the mall's reason to exist, being the convenient place to buy ordinary stuff. Once that convenience moved into your pocket, the only malls left standing were the ones that offered something a screen never could: an experience, a status, a place to be. Which, if you think about it, is exactly what Victor Gruen wanted in the first place. So what happens to the 700 survivors? And the thousands of empty shells left behind? Some are being torn down entirely, but the interesting ones are being reborn. Across the country, dead malls are being gutted and rebuilt into things their developers never imagined. Apartment complexes and mixed-use town centers, bringing people back to live where they used to shop. Medical office parks, schools, churches, warehouses, and e-commerce fulfillment centers, which is almost poetic. The very thing that killed the mall now operating inside its corpse, shipping out the online orders that emptied it. And the survivors are leaning hard into the one thing online can't copy: experience. Rock climbing walls, aquariums, mini golf, pickleball, dining you go out for, entertainment you can't download. The mall is slowly becoming, again, less of a store and more of a destination. Then there's the strangest afterlife of all. The dead malls themselves have become a kind of cultural artifact. There's an entire subculture of photographers and urban explorers who document them. The dead mall aesthetic. Empty food courts. Fountains full of dust. There's a haunting music genre built around it. People feel something looking at these images, and it's not really about retail at all. Because here's the lesson, the real one. The mall didn't die from any single villain. Not Amazon, not the recession, not even greed exactly. It died from a fragile business model that got massively overbuilt. A structure that depended on endless growth, propped up by anchor stores that were themselves doomed, locked together by lease clauses that turned one failure into a chain reaction. The internet didn't cause that fragility. It just exposed it. It pulled the thread that was always loose. And when you look at those photos of empty malls and feel that pang of loss, pay attention to what you're actually mourning. It isn't the Sears. It isn't the food court Sparrow. What people miss is the third place. That's the term sociologists use for somewhere that isn't home and isn't work, where you just existed among other people, for no particular reason. The mall was the great American third place for 2 generations. And we didn't lose it because we stopped wanting it. We lost it because we let it be built as a machine for selling socks, when what we actually loved about it was each other. Victor Gruen knew that in 1956. We're only figuring it out now, standing in the ruins. So let me ask you something, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. What was your mall? The one you grew up with? Drop its name below, and tell me the one store you'd bring back if you could. The shop you miss most. I read these, and I promise you the comments on this one are going to hit people right in the childhood. And if you found yourself nodding along to this, if you like stories about how the giant, too big to fail pieces of our economy actually rise and fall, that's the whole point of this channel. We dig into the money behind the memories. the economics behind the nostalgia. So do me a favor, hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Because next time, we're pulling apart another empire everyone thought would last forever, and the single decision that took it down. I'm glad you came along for this one. I'll see you in the next.